what is Coach Greg doing? Having them blast hella gear for their very first show after they only used 300 milligrams and then follow that up with 150? Why would they blast hella gear?
Hell yeah, bro.
Craig, you got your hands full, man. Holy sh...
Coach Greg, and in today's video, going over the Tren twins' huge cycle. That's right, huge. You may already know this. I'm coaching the Tren twins, and so obviously I know what they're taking. And people have made videos on it saying this is their huge cycle. And so people are speculating, how much are they taking? After all, it's not their fault. The Tren twins quite literally made a video and said, we're going to go crazy. We're going to go into a huge cycle. We're trying to turn pro. But how huge is it really? How much muscle they're going to put on? And so let's get right into it. And so Nick Trilogy Bodybuilding BS made a video. The Tren twins' huge cycle in capitals to turn pro. And so if you don't know what a huge cycle is, I bid on them in the past. When I turned pro, as well as some of the pro shows I did, I was on a lot, perhaps close to 3,000 milligrams of 4 different compounds, all at the same time, in addition to taking orals, peptides, and so on. And so that is a lot. That, in addition to growth hormone, insulin, various fat burners, and so on, that is what makes a cycle huge. And so it's not just how many different things are you taking, how many compounds, it's also at what dose are you taking these. And as you know, the higher the doses, more likely the better results you're going to get, but only up to a certain point. And eventually, due to the law of diminished returns, more is not always better. There comes a point where you take so much that you actually get worse. After all, what good is a major huge cycle if you wind up in the hospital? And so now that we know what a huge cycle is, let's compare it to what a smaller beginner cycle would be. Well, for a beginner, perhaps it's your first time, you could use just one compound. Perhaps it's 400 milligrams of testosterone a week. That to me would be a beginner cycle. It's certainly way more than HRT, which is something doctors prescribed, of which I'm on 140 milligrams a week, but it's certainly going to put on a lot more muscle than just taking HRT. And somewhere in the middle is an intermediate cycle, somebody who does have some experience with taking compounds, but it's not their first rodeo. They do have a little bit of experience, but they're certainly not ready to take huge cycles, if ever. And so we're currently 14 weeks out. And in the past, they've stated they were on 300 milligrams of test a week and that they lowered that to 150 milligrams. We don't know what they've done in the past. They've stated they're 100% natural back in the day, of which I didn't believe, but we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about the current huge cycle that they're on, 14 weeks out from their first show, of which they want to turn pro. But remember, they can't turn pro in their first show. The first show is a qualifier. The top 2 go on to nationals. And at that show, if you do in fact win, that is when you can turn pro.
I rate my whole day on the fucking pump. My pump makes my day.
I love the pump. I really miss it. My pumps now are, yeah, they don't exist.
And so I don't understand how Nick is saying his pumps don't exist. Nick is on HRT, doctor-prescribed testosterone, same thing that I'm on. I have amazing pumps. But Nick is, of course, sponsored by Old School Labs. Me, myself, I own my own supplement company. Harder than last time. HCLT, that's what it stands for. And so perhaps if Nick were taking my supplements, of which I'd gladly give some to him, he could take these and get a really serious pump. And so think of it. Nick is on HRT and taking Old School Labs, but for some reason, his pumps are non-existent. Perhaps he's not eating enough carbs, not getting enough food, but he should be still able to get a pump. Even if I'm depleted, not eating enough, taking my own supplements and go to gym, I'm getting a serious and massive pump. And in particular, if I want the most massive pump, I will take Ecti Builder before going to the gym and take pre-pump during the gym. It's non-stim. I sip it while I'm working out. I take a pre-workout before going to the gym, but while I'm at the gym, I'm sipping on pre-pump. That gets me more vascular, more pumped than friggin' last time. Interested in these supplements? Code Greg, 10% off. You can also, of course, use Old School Labs. Nothing wrong with that. But hey, this is my own supplement company. Of course, I'm going to promote what I personally use.
So we're getting back to our motherfucking roots, okay? So I've decided to blast hella gear.
Uh-oh.
And so, of course, Nick is concerned. The Tren twins making a video saying they decided to blast hella gear, and I'm their coach. And so, how does that look? People are going to watch the video and think, what is Coach Greg doing? Having them blast hella gear for their very first show after they only used 300 milligrams and then follow that up with 150? Why would they blast hella gear?
Hell yeah, bro.
Craig, you got your hands full, man. Holy sh...
And so, yeah, kind of got my hands full. But remember, I'm an experienced coach, coached several young athletes in the past, had them turn pro, make it to the Olympia stage. And so it's not my first rodeo. I know how to talk to these people. I have the experience. I was once their age, and so I'm guiding them, not going to let them make the same mistakes that many others, including myself, has made in the past.
The last thing I want is my client saying, I'm about to smash hella illegal drugs. And my coach, he's the one that's going to tell me how to take these illegal substances.
And so in case you're wondering, I've outlined all of my cycles in the past. I've made videos, and you can clearly go and see exactly what I've taken. And since switching to classic physique, I took hardly anything. I know you're not going to believe it. Many of you doubt me. And since the last show, I haven't taken anything, just HRT, 140 milligrams a week. And yeah, I still have a lot of muscle, but I've kept a lot of it. Perhaps I'm down 20 pounds at most. But remember, a little goes a long way. When you have great genetics, you're training harder than last time, and have an amazing diet, I'm following the recipes in my cookbook, it's not as hard as you think.
But boys, one step at a time. You gotta crawl before you walk. Working with Greg Doucette, this guy's gonna push you way past your limits that Tren can help you with.
And so Nick is making an excellent point. It's their first show. To put pressure on yourself already so young to turn pro, that's a lot, and it is hard. They have never dieted to this extent in their entire lives. And so I've spent a lot of time explaining to them, this is not easy. The first 10 pounds of fat, it goes off easily. Getting to single-digit body fat, it's a snap. It's quite literally a joke. It's easy in comparison to getting shredded. They would like to get to 5% body fat. That is as leaner than several IFBB pros. And so to get that shredded for your first show, I'm not a fan of. I don't want them to actually get that lean. I'd much prefer them to peak when it really matters. Does it really matter at your very first show, if you're the leanest guy on stage, that you have to dominate and blow everyone out of the water? Or should you just have fun? Learn more about your body, how your body responds to certain things, and take it from there. And if you blast hella gear right off, how do you know if the diet's actually working? How do you know if the training's working? If it's all because of the supplements, how do you know what's actually working? And so what I've been doing is trying to convince them to take the lowest dose that makes them happy. And remember, you can always titrate up later. You can always take more in the future. But if you start with a huge blast, it's much more difficult to lower your doses as you get older. And so I'm 100% certain that they have absolutely no clue about how hard this is going to be. 14 weeks out, and personally I saw the photos, and they're not as lean as they said. I'm not going to say exactly what percent body fat I felt that they are. You could perhaps ask the Tren twins. Write them. Say, we want to know what body fat Greg said you're at. We want to know about your diet. How many calories are you on? How many meals a day? How many snacks? But for now, what I can tell you is that for most people, what I'd prefer is for them to start out much leaner than this. For their off season, they're a little bit heavy, a little bit softer than last time. To get down to 5% body fat, you want to maintain a leaner physique. You know how hard it is to get to 5% if you're 19%? You'd have to diet for a couple months just to get as lean as where I am now. And so if your starting point is very soft in the off season, and by soft I mean compared to bodybuilding standards. For the average person, the Tren twins are lean. But for a bodybuilder, this is a very off-ish off-season.
Well, we know they already started gear. Now, how much more are they going to take? I don't know. Let's see the results they get. Let's see how well they do with the diet. Let's see how well they do at the show.
And so what exactly is their cycle? Well, I can tell you this. It is the second smallest cycle I've ever given to a bodybuilder in my entire life. I've only coached one bodybuilder who was in fact not natural to take a lower dose. And so does that make it a huge cycle? Absolutely not. It's a small cycle, baby cycle. Perhaps a little bit more than a beginner. And so in comparison to most beginners, it's actually less. Most people who do their first cycle would in fact take more than they are taking. And so I know you're thinking, yeah, but they said we're going to blast hella gear. Yeah, but I convinced them not to. And so remember, I'm a coach looking after their best interests. And for their best interest, they need to do less. They have plenty of time in the future to do more. Yeah, they could do their first show and say, yeah, we did it with a very small cycle. Now we want to go higher. Sure, that's your choice, their bodies. They're not telling other people to do what they're doing. They're saying they're going to take and do what they want with their own bodies. And remember, these are not teenagers. And although they're only in their early 20s, 21 years of age, they're not teenagers. Remember a certain four-time Mr. Olympia champion, Chris Bumstead? He started at 18. And so these guys are 21. They have waited 3 extra years to do a show in comparison to Chris. But even still, they're still extremely young. There's no reason to become an IFB pro at only 21, 22, even 23 years of age. You have your whole future ahead of you. And when you're competing as an amateur, you're a big fish in a small pond. But once you turn pro, especially in the open category, do you see the level of competition? They would then be competing against guys like Nick Walker, Hadi Chopin, Derek Lunsford, Ian Valliere. And so I see no reason for them to push to compete in open bodybuilding. If possible, classic physique makes the most sense because there's a height and weight cutoff, 175 pounds for these guys who are just over 5'6" tall. And as an IFB pro, you can then add 10 additional pounds. But being short, they're at a significant disadvantage. Very difficult to compete against a guy like Chris Bumstead, who's over 6'1", who can weigh 240 pounds. When you're 5'6" manlet like Coach Greg, you can only weigh 185. Why do you think I can't win? I was only able to get 4th at my best showing in classic physique. Judges said, you don't have enough muscle. Grow your back, your biceps, shoulders, chest. How can I? I'm at the weight limit. I can't get any bigger. And so unless you're born with the tiniest of waists in the world, with amazing genetics, classic physique is very hard. But in open bodybuilding, just as hard. You have to get that much bigger. And so potentially, they could settle somewhere in the middle. The 212 category. At 5'6", 212 pounds shredded, that is a ton of muscle. That is the size of Flex Lewis. And how did he do? Multiple Olympia titles. And so perhaps it's not the open class or even classic physique, but rather the 212 division.
Let's see how hardcore they really are. Put your money where your mouth is, Tren Twins. Let's see if you're made for this.
And so this is exactly it. Your goal shouldn't be to get a pro card before you've even done your very first show. Because how do you know if you even like it? Do you really want to be a professional at something without even having tried it in the first place? Oh, I know. I want to be a surgeon. Then you find out that blood makes you faint. Not the best idea. Perhaps try one first. And so you need to get your feet wet, to do a diet, to compete, to see exactly how much suffering is involved in this. Because every percent body fat that you drop gets infinitely harder than the percent before. Getting to single-digit body fat is relatively going to be easy. But as you go from 9 to 8, 7, 6, 5, even 4, that is a nightmare. Even guys like Chris Bumstead eating 15 to 1,800 calories a day with all that muscle and size doing multiple hours of cardio, it's not easy. And so in coaching the Tren Twins, they're not doing a huge cycle. It's in fact a very small cycle. But the work that really has to be done is the diet. The diet is where I'm the most nervous. I know they have to clean up their eating, eat fewer calories than last time, and add in more cardio. And we're going to see. Will they in fact enjoy the process? Will they fall in love with the suffering? Will they embrace it? Only time will tell.
We're starting prep towards the end of the month. We're going to be going heavy on the calories, shit ton of cardio to keep our strength and like our gains because we're going to be putting out hella fucking size.
And so the reality is they're not actually going high on calories. They're going very low on calories as they're currently a little bit behind. I'd much prefer a leaner off season as it makes getting shredded that much easier. And so no, they're not actually bulking up right now. They're actually on a cut trying to get leaner. And I've switched out their training to not go for 1 rep maxes, to add more reps and to focus on the mind-muscle connection that you get with controlling the weight and using time under tension. They've stated that they're lifting lighter, that they feel a little bit weaker, but of course you are. When you're controlling the weight that much more and really focusing and squeezing on the muscle, you can't lift as heavy. That is normal. Also, when you're dieting, losing body fat on a lower calorie diet with less glycogen stores, of course you're going to get weaker. This is inevitable. And because they're such great powerlifters, that is hard on the ego. It's hard to go to the gym and lift lighter weights, but that is something you have to get used to. When you transition from powerlifting to bodybuilding, you simply have to get used to it. I've done this for decades, competed back and forth bodybuilding and powerlifting. And so of course my goal is to have them win the show on the lowest doses possible while remaining healthy. Then possibly transition back into powerlifting and go back and forth from bodybuilding to powerlifting. And if they listen to me, follow the diet, the training, I do believe they'll reach their goals. But of course, it's really up to them. They have to embrace the suffering. They have all the potential in the world. They train very hard. They're very passionate. And so if they want it, I 100% believe they can achieve their goals.
We gotta start drinking more water in our workouts.
Man, I've been so down bad lately, bro.
Little tip for you guys. You have to be hydrated in order for these supplements to work.
And if you are having a difficult time drinking water, Drink Perry Light. I was on vacation in Mexico, never drank any plain water, don't like it. Mix in the Perry Light. It's help you to stay hydrated, especially if you're drinking alcohol. It also has EAAs and BCAAs, 8 grams per scoop. That is a lot. And so you're not only staying hydrated, you're also getting the protein you need. Perhaps you're waking up doing empty stomach cardio. You take some of this, you get a little bit of protein, help you stay hydrated, going to allow you to drink more. And so if you're interested in this or any of the other supplements, code Greg, 10% off. Click the link in the description.
They didn't want to put a video out because their energy wasn't their typical self. You think you're going to feel like this every workout?
Exactly. As Nick stated, if they think that they're going to have energy the entire time, they are not. There is no magic diet, no secret formula that allow you to get to 5% body fat and feel amazing. Perhaps 1 in 1,000 people can do that and feel good, but for the most part, everyone dieting to this extent is suffering. Lower libido, lower testosterone levels, brain fog, insomnia. It sucks. And so you got to love it. You got to really embrace the suffering. And so rather than saying we want our pro cards the first time, rather see you say, want to compete and see if we like it. We're going to go harder than last time. We're going to see how we like it, how we fare. And after that, we'll then decide what we want to do. But we're not going to blast hella gear for our first show. We're going to go very light, very small, be safe. After that, we'll reevaluate. We'll see what are our current goals. What do we now want to do?
I'm very excited they're doing a show. I really am. I genuinely am excited to see how they look on stage. But pro card talk? Guys, it's a little early for that.
And so I have to agree, you shouldn't be going for your pro card right away, saying you want to be the youngest. It puts way too much pressure on. And when you put more pressure on yourselves, that is when you likely take more super supplements. You're thinking, I said I want to be the youngest to turn pro. I've said this, I've stated that. And so the pressure's on. You say, I want to take more. I want to take even more than that. And I have, in fact, coached people in the past that have taken double what I've told them to do. And so sometimes the pressure gets to people. And so you shouldn't put this kind of pressure. Just do your best. Compare yourself to yourself. Improve at every single show. You don't have to win your pro card on your very first try. And I've actually seen people do this in the past. James English, as you know, he won his first show, then went on to the pro qualifier and turned pro. But did you see the aftermath, the suffering, the mental health he was struggling with? And remember, he turned pro in classic physique. Open bodybuilding is that much harder. And so please take your time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Enjoy the journey. It's all about the journey. Whether you win your pro card or not at your first pro qualifier, does it really matter? We've seen Brandon Harding attempt multiple times and then finally earn his pro card. And the more work you have to put into earning something, the greater it's going to feel when you actually turn pro. Subscribe, click the bell button, like the video if you liked it. Remember, code Greg, 10% off. Click the link in the description. Remember, I'm giving away a free diet and training program. Go to my website, first and last name. Click the link in the description. Give us your email, and voila, you've got it. It's free. Of course, you can support the channel by getting any of the Harder Than Last Time supplements or the cookbooks, training books, coaching plans by me and my team. Don't forget to watch the Tube Loops and subscribe to my Instagram, Greg Doucette IB Pro. And until next time, I am out.